I'm finally getting back into a pretty regular writing schedule. I'll write for over an hour in a day in a session. When I sit down, I'll usually kind of just do like one session a day. And I've been doing it almost every day. I've actually been really surprised by how much I have done because on days where I usually like wouldn't, now I'm like making the time to get it done. But at the same time, I've also been a little bit frustrated by the lack of progress I feel like I'm making for the time that I'm putting into it. So, if you're new here, my name is Josie. Welcome to my writing channel. If you're not new here, hello, welcome back. I figure we should do a little catch up because this summer has felt like such a strange writing experience. Like, for so many years, I was in this cycle of like writing one book a year. And so by this point, I'd be like wrapping up the book I started the previous fall and then going into the next one. But in the last year, I've really like changed up that rhythm. I went straight from finishing up the last thriller book that I wrote in the last cycle to then last fall going into writing just a fantasy book I've always wanted to write. I wrote one draft of that, finished it sometime in the spring, and then because I'm trying to do this querying, because that's like the thing that's really changed in all of this, as well as like I moved after living somewhere for like 5 years. So that was obviously a huge change. But I really wanted to unearth and kind of polish up some of the other thrillers I'd written so I could get them ready for querying after. And I feel like I've just like half started so many of them. I first revisited the first thriller I wrote and I'd done a pretty thorough rewrite of like a third, maybe close to a half of that. But then I quickly changed gears and now I'm working on the Submarine Project, which is the second thriller I ever wrote. And it was supposed to be a really easy line level, no problem, get through it in like I don't know, a week, and then I can start querying it. But I'm still not querying it, and I'm doing yet another pass from the beginning. In this pass, I've been removing a lot of words. So when I first picked this up, it was around 99,000 words. I've slowly been picking away at it, reducing stuff. Because I got feedback from an agent who was like, your opening chapter, you need to get to the heart of the story faster. And I really resonated with it. So I not only did that for the first chapter, but I've kind of carried it through as like I continue through act 1 and act 2 because the start of this book is maybe a little slower than it should be. So the book is now sitting around like 88,000, 89,000 words. So I've knocked out like 10,000 words from the draft when I first picked it up, which feels like really crazy. And the document that I have it in like double spaced font, which I think makes it resemble close to like the page count you would have like in a published book. And it's somewhere around like 350 pages, I think, at the moment. And I'm currently on page like somewhere 80, 85 is where I'm at. And I'm entering another chapter that I thought was kind of slow that I want to add a new element. So that's going to take me a while to get through, but I just feel like I'm like so far from the end. Like I'm not even a third of the way through at this point. I was just really hoping I'd make way more progress. I don't know why I thought I could make so much more progress. I guess I just didn't realize I'd be removing so much. I'd be rewriting ish so much. And it's just been kind of a frustrating experience, especially because I also have in the back of my mind the like unfinished other thriller I put down and have potentially have to go back to at some point soon. And I just like really want to get started on querying the submarine book, but I also don't want to do it too early. Like I want to make sure when I'm sending out this book, hopefully when agents request the full book, it is the best that I can do at this moment. And I won't have any regrets later on of like, oh, I should have reworked this. I should have reworked that. It wasn't a good representation of the story I want to tell, all that. So that is why I had this little bit of a fire under my butt, like starting like 4 or 5 days ago. And I was like, I just need to get this done. So I think I was like on chapter like 3. And then I've just been working through it, trying to find the time because I want to say I'm doing it out of like my own enjoyment, and I am enjoying this process as much as it is frustrating. Like when I'm like sitting down and actually working on it, I'm having a great time. It's like after when I'm like overthinking my project and not working on it that like I start to get more stressed out about it. Essentially, I just need to get this steady progress going. I need to feel like I'm consistently working on it. I'm consistently moving towards my goal to make me feel good about it. And, I'm not going to set any kind of like deadline really, because I'm sure I'm not going to hit it, because I don't want to, at the end of the day, I just, again, don't want to compromise and go faster and not do the work that needs to be done because I want to query sooner. So with all that being said, it is time to dive back into the draft, and I'm working on, a chapter that felt a little lackluster. Like, I know what I was trying to attempt with it. I was also introducing a lot of like information and kind of moving some relationships along. But there is one aspect that I really want to bring out that wasn't there before. So I'm going to have to play around with that a little bit. I'm sorry, but I am going to blame you for losing my momentum, because yesterday's writing session did not go that great. I was just like overthinking the chapter. I couldn't figure out how I wanted to shape the direction of the conversation. And the momentum was so good until we spoke, which is why I think trying to overanalyze, trying to think, trying to put my feelings into words in this case hindered me rather than helped me in this process. So hopefully I can get out of this rut today, because I really don't want to just be spinning my wheels in this one chapter. So I'm having a little bit of a hard time of like how I want to implement this change, how I want to integrate it into the dialogue, how I want to change what's already there. I'm just going to try and turn off my editing brain, because there is like a little bit of first drafting that I have to do here, and just try and see about getting to the end of the chapter, seeing how I feel about it and reworking it, rather than like write a couple sentences, not like it, delete it, write a couple more, stare at the screen, think about where I should be taking it. I spent so much time on it yesterday, and I got through like one page, and I really want to keep up the momentum if I'm ever going to reach the end of this book in the near future. Guess who made it through the chapter from hell? And if you guessed me, you are correct. Though to be fair, it's not really the chapter from hell. Like, it actually turned out really good. I feel like I just need to kind of get past the beginning lump of it. I also deleted more words. I'm deleting so many words. A part of me is worried there's going to be no story left at the end of this, but I feel like I would just really attach to so many like little pieces of conversation that didn't really need to be there. It like I wrote it in like the first draft, and I just like wasn't cutthroat enough further on. And it's a balance, because as much as I'm like, it's not really needed, it's not really progressing the story, like they technically are in the way of like developing rapport between characters and those kind of connections. But I feel like as well in writing, you can have it be a little bit less explained in that way. Like, obviously, as human beings, like when we get to know people, we learn each other's like random details of our lives and our jobs and our hobbies and whatever. And like, that's implied in a story. Like, we cannot have every single word, every single conversation that people are having in a book, because then it just gets like completely bogged down. I mean, especially when you're meeting a new person. So it's like that balance of like trying to include enough of those moments where you are getting a sense that like characters are getting closer, but not share so many that it's like slowing down the story. So I'm trying to shift away from them getting closer based off of having conversations, and instead having them getting closer based off of like mutual experience and how they're there for each other, because I'm building a romance in this book as well. I made a creative decision for the last bit of the chapter of how it's then going to transition to the next one that I've already started to work on. And I like it. I feel like it works well, but it also is potentially suggesting that I could play with this aspect moving forward a little bit more than I did, which I think could help. But it's also not that much of an aspect that it would like create a plot hole if I don't go back to it enough times or like build it up enough. So I'm happy with how that ended. I'm happy with then what it did for that romantic relationship and how they could connect based off of that resolution. And then I think it also puts the next chapter, like the next thing they have to do, which was one of the scenes where I was like, is this superfluous? I don't know. But it adds a little bit more importance as to why my main character needs this, and it kind of gives a little bit more reason for it to be there. So I just like it when stuff like that happens, like when you come up with a new thing and it just kind of like clicks into place and it makes everything around it that much stronger. But to get to this takes a lot of effort and a lot of banging my head against the wall because I was clearly not happy over the last day or two of just not being able to figure it out. But then once I figured it out, it was great. So I need to remind myself in the future, if a scene is hard, greatness can come from it. Well, maybe not greatness. It's like okayness. Like it's not anything super, super special, but I'm happy with it. I just completed a really short evening writing session. I'm feeling really tired, so I'm going to go to bed. But it just feels so good to have that momentum going again that I think I have to stop this video now before I get stuck again, because I still hold you a little bit accountable for getting in my own head. If we didn't chat like this, I feel like that last chapter would have been a little bit easier to get through. But at the same time, like, it feels good to have that accomplishment of feeling really uncertain about it, feeling stuck, and then pushing through and being happy with the result. Because I feel like even though I've written and completed so many stories at this point now, so many full length novels, it is still in the back of my head because as like a child, I started a lot of things and didn't really finish them, like writing related or otherwise, like knitting projects, or, like I was often picking things up and putting things down, that even though I feel like in my adulthood, I've been really good about finishing the things I've started, it's always like in the back of my head that I'm just like not someone who does that, even though I've worked so hard to overcome that as I've gotten older. And so, even just like the small wins of feeling really stuck and frustrated by this chapter and then pushing through and succeeding feels so good. And it's like, even zooming out a little bit more, like part of the frustration I think I've been feeling about taking so long to finish this draft and also having the other thriller that I'm in the middle of that I also haven't finished, and also having a first draft for a fantasy book and like feeling that need to go back and do further edits on that, is like, I don't operate well, probably, not to get too psychological about all this, but I don't operate well having all these half finished projects. Like, I need the completion for my own sense of like being able to put it aside, building my own confidence, because I think confidence in writing and a lot of things is constantly like in flux. Like, it's not like, oh wow, I finished one book, two book, three books, like I can do this. Like, I feel like you're constantly having to prove to yourself that you are capable, especially with something like writing where it is so like self-motivated, especially when you're not published. Like, it's not like anyone's waiting on you to finish anything. Like, you could just stop everything you're writing halfway through, and like, who cares? It's for your own satisfaction, it's for your own like motivation. And yes, I want to query, yes, I want to be published, but for me it's just about continually building on my confidence with the small things as well as the bigger things. And it's like, I set out to try and keep this momentum going, to try to keep pushing, to try and write, maybe not every day. It's nothing like that scheduled or that like official, but trying to spend as much time as I can every day and feel like I'm pushing and getting further and further in the story and I'm being consistent. It's how I can trust that I am going to get to this draft, whether or not it takes me like another week, another 2 weeks, another month, like who knows. It just needing to feel like I'm picking away at it little bit by little bit. But I'm exhausted, so while I could just like continue to ramble on aimlessly about this subject for a long time, because it's something that I think about a lot of myself, I do need to get to bed. So thank you if you made it to the end of this video. But we're just going to try and keep being consistent, keep writing as much as I can, whether that's every day, every other day. And we are going to eventually get to the end of this draft.